The Sherman is the legendary American tank of World War II. The first serial copy came off the production line in February 1942, and for 3 years of production, it underwent various modifications and changes to meet the needs of the troops on the front. It is this relative ease with which the tank could be improved and modified that became one of its main features. But first things first. By the beginning of World War II, the Americans had only M2 medium tanks and its modification, the M2A1. It was armed with a 37mm gun with a small yield high explosive projectile and was only slightly armoured. It was decided to develop a new tank, to install a 75mm gun and to increase the thickness of armour almost twice. This tank became the M3. However, the M3 did not satisfy the military already at the design stage. At that time, there was no turret in which it was possible to install the powerful 75mm gun. Therefore, it was installed in the right spots instead of the machine guns, which greatly reduced its combat effectiveness. In addition, the tank's hull was too tall, making it a large target. Therefore, in August 1940, even before the M3 had come off the assembly line, the military had set out a list of requirements for a new tank to replace it. However, work on the design of a new tank could only start in February 1941, after the M3 was sent to production. This tank was far from perfect, but it was utilised as the combat conditions required anything with a 75mm gun. In September, the prototype of a new tank, the T6, was ready. The new tank inherited from the M3 the lower hull, the construction of the powertrain, the engine, and also the 75mm Mark II gun with a stabiliser, which allowed for more efficient fire on the move. But at the same time, it was favourably different, having a sturdy and lower hull, a new transmission, suspension, and most importantly, a cast turret with a 75mm gun. The prototype had successfully passed the test. It was quickly standardised, and in February 1942, mass production was started with small changes. The tank received the designation M4. In the British Army, it was nicknamed Sherman in honour of the American general of the Civil War, William T. Sherman. The very first serial Sherman was sent to the American Army for evaluation. The second, with the memorable inscription Michael, named after the head of the British tank mission, Michael Dewar, was sent to the British Army. By the beginning of the serial production of the Shermans, the new long-barrelled M3 guns were not yet ready, so this early M4A1 had a short M2 gun installed. The new turret was designed specifically for a new gun, so the M2 had a counterweight. This is clearly seen in archive photographs. Subsequently, the M4 was fitted with an M3 gun with a longer barrel, which already needed no counterweight. The process of improving and developing the Sherman did not stop until the end of the war. In fact, the American consultants travelled with the vehicles to both the Soviet and the British armies to assess their combat effectiveness. There was a high demand for tanks. The United States, Britain, the USSR and other allies needed new tanks as soon as possible. Therefore, Sherman assembly began not only in the tank arsenals, but also locomotive and car building factories. These factories used different techniques for manufacturing the hull, installing different engines and so on. Therefore, there immediately began to appear different versions of the tank. Initially, the designers assumed that the tank would have a cast hull, but because of the difficulties in mass production of castings of this size, only the M4A1 received the cast hull. For the other variants, the M4, the M4A2, A3 and A4, the hull was welded from sheets of rolled armoured steel. The first engine fitted to the Sherman was a D-rated Continental star-shaped aircraft engine with an output of around about 350 horsepower. Now, as you can see, it's quite a large engine, and this meant that the actual hull of the Sherman had to be quite high as well just to fit it in, which was bad from the point of view of the profile of the vehicle, but good that it meant that there was such a vast amount of space in there that you could fit a variety of different engines. In general, Sherman was a very good tank for the military at the time. According to the British military, the appearance of the Sherman in North Africa played a significant role in the victory at the Battle of El Alamein in October 1942. The tanks showed themselves very well, demonstrating good reliability, manoeuvrability, plus adequate armament and armour. Powerful at that time, the 75mm gun allowed the Sherman to fulfill its direct purpose. That was to support the infantry and also engage and destroy enemy positions. At the same time, the M4 could effectively withstand the German Panzer IIIs and IVs. However, there were significant shortcomings. One of them is the vulnerable ammunition storage area. The ammunition was located in shelves above the tracks, and when the Sherman was hit and penetrated, it frequently caused detonation of the shells. But the main problem was the meeting between the Sherman and the Tiger in February 1943. The M4 could not compete on an equal basis with this German monster. Both the British and the Americans overcame these problems by two of the most famous modifications. The first nicknamed the Easy 8 and the second the much-loved Firefly.